Welcome, seekers. I'm so excited to sit down and talk with you about a very powerful new moon in Cancer that is happening this July 12th through the 13th, depending on where you are. It's going exact at 10:48 Eastern time. So, for those of you in Europe or further east than that, we'll be experiencing the direct aspect of this on the 13th. For those in the US, we're going to be building up to it on the 12th. It took me a minute to get here today. I've had the notes written up for this moon for a few days, and I had every intention of getting right in there and just really enjoying talking about this. And then I was struck with exhaustion and a little bit of illness that just basically took me out of the game for a couple of days. Until I could sit down and do this. And I think the symbolism behind that is so powerful, because here's the thing with the Cancer new moon, partial solar eclipse, that honestly almost no one in the world is going to see the eclipse. It's out of the range of the inhabited world, basically. However, you feel the effects of it, right? This moon is all about molding reality, and you have so much earth energy involved with the Cancer new moon and this eclipse. There's so much earth energy influencing this new moon. You can really utilize that to mold the next iteration of who you're going to be. That's what moon helps us do. Every moon cycle helps us continue to mold and refine. But sometimes there's a lot of horsepower behind a certain moon and the aspects surrounding it that allow you to jumpstart and kickstart things and reshape your reality with a lot of efficiency. And that's what I'm seeing here. And that's why I've been very excited to talk with you, and also why I think it's funny that I got sick and I was forced to slow down and take care of myself, because I always tell you all, take care of yourselves. Slow down, enjoy, have fun, find the flow. And I think sometimes I need a reminder that I have to do that as well. And I always think about Cancer season. It's a really special time. No matter what your house placements or your sun sign or your rising sign or your moon sign, Cancer season is the time of mothering, of nurturing. It is a very deeply symbolically tied to the moon and to our self-care. So there's already so much poetry every year with the Cancer new moon, no matter what. We are leading into a time when Cancer is going to be highlighted as the north node of the moon later this year. And we are being reminded again and again that a lot of our power in our lives, in manifesting and creating, is based in our connection to our ability to mother and care for ourselves, to slow down and listen in. The divine feminine and the divine masculine, right? And one of the things we are learning about as a collective and on a larger scale with the law of attraction and with vibrational thought is the more feminine principle of allowance and self-mothering. So already, this moon and this eclipse with the sun and the moon in Cancer, it's at 20 degrees of Cancer, are doing this beautiful thing. The first aspect, I just got chills as I thought about this. The first aspect of this moon, the number one thing I will say about this moon is it is opposing Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 20 degrees. So Pluto's been hanging in Capricorn, as the Capricorns out there know, for quite a while. Will be in there for quite a while more. Has long transits. Pluto has very long transits. And he's retrograde right now, which is all about incorporation. But in this opposition of the self-nurturing, loving new moon in Cancer that is so soft and gentle and warm and appreciative and just wants you to listen in, ride the waves, flow with it, take a breath. It's opposing Pluto, the Lord and Master of transformation, who takes no prisoners, who does not want to hear your excuses for why you aren't making the changes you need to make. Pluto just wants you to step up your game. And in Capricorn, absolutely. that opposition is really powerful because it's asking us to evolve past storylines that involve jealousy, imprisonment, obsession. I think a lot of times we incorporate these emotional states because they feel necessary somehow to putting your best work forward. If you're not consciously patrolling and focusing and intent on what you want, whether that's a relationship or a job or a change in your life, if you're not intently focused on that and fueling some of these things about obsession and possession and jealousy, it feels like maybe they won't happen because you're not patrolling them. This new moon is asking us to take a breath and release that, because the patrolling isn't what makes manifestation possible. It is the breath and the self-love. Sometimes people talk to me, they say, I like that you talk about self-love. I understand how that's important, but what about those people who all they think about is themselves? All they do is for themselves. They hurt other people. They do damaging things to other people. This is what I will say. Those people don't actually practice self-love. They probably have a lot of internal struggle with their self-value. That's why they treat others with such disregard and with such selfish motivations. People that really love themselves are able to give to humanity at a level that somebody who's struggling with those things can't, because they're working through. And that's exactly what I'm saying here. For any of us that have those little corners in our beings that make us feel as though we can't give of ourselves, we have to be selfishly motivated, this aspect, this opposition of Pluto retrograde and the new moon in Cancer here is so beautiful for that. It's really graceful. It could take you to some dark places if you have patterning that has been creeping up on you and causing you to exhaust yourself, causing you to burn out, causing you to feel really empty or numb to the world. This opposition is going to ask you to just take some time for yourself to make sure that you are listening into what's really working for you. Okay, not only that, we have a lot more Earth aspecting going on with this new moon because there's a grand Earth trine going on. And the degrees are so close for this. It's just beautiful because around the time of this new moon, Venus will have just entered Virgo. Venus, this beautiful energy about value. And I keep thinking about the word value, how we value ourselves, what we love and value. That is what Venus always highlights. And here in Virgo, in this earthy, grounded, practical energy that is all about how we move through the world and get things done to serve others, to serve ourselves, to serve life in its material form is there. It's going to be about 3 degrees of Virgo at the time of this new moon. Now, that beautiful Venus placement is going to be trining Uranus in Taurus and Saturn in Capricorn, right? Yes. Yes, that is correct. So, and these are all within a couple degrees of each other. So it's a true trine. It's a true grand trine. And, you know, as you can see, it's all 3 Earth signs. Earth manifestation is really important. We are in a time of flux right now where, because the Uranus transit has just begun in Taurus and we're just getting a taste of it before it retros back into Aries at the end of the year and into 2019, we're just getting a taste of that. Everybody's recalibrating to this new energetic cycle. Same with Saturn. It's only been in Capricorn for 6 months, 7 months, and we're getting used to that energy. It's fresh. There's some volatility. We have eclipses, we have retrogrades, we have a lot of incorporation. Everybody's feeling this kind of liquidity to the world. And that's the image that actually came to mind, was molten ground. Almost like clay, like being in a world where the whole thing is made of clay and you have the skill set to mold it to anything you want, a house, a partner. I don't want to get into homunculi. I feel like I want to get into homunculi every time I talk on this channel. But you can mold whatever you want. You can mold the story you want. You can mold the mental space you want. And that's the thing with this powerful Earth energy working away with us as this new moon eclipse is happening. we are able to reset our storylines, reset the way we think about things, and that is how things manifest. Earth energy is happy to provide you with the next steps and the material manifestations to help you along through the process. But Earth can only do that if you are willing to perceive and receive it, especially with Cancer energy, which is all about receptivity and all about the ability to flow, all about the ability to incorporate and balance. Earth energy wants to give you the tools to move forward. Having Saturn and Capricorn is all about practicality. It's all about, step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, if you want to build this piece of furniture, you have to cut your lumber to these sizes, and then you have to adhere them in these different places. Obviously, I'm not a carpenter because that was not a great description of that. That's what Saturn and Capricorn is like. Uranus and Taurus is like, how can we invite surprise? How can we invite new elements and new practical ways of moving forward that maybe are surprising, that maybe are intriguing, that maybe are intuitive? It's got a lot to do with how we explore our bodies and how we use our bodies as a vessel of exploratory opportunities. Now, you can take that wherever you want to take that, especially with Venus and Virgo over there trining Uranus and Taurus. But this is all very physical. It's all very physical. It's all about how we commit to our stories and commit to those we care about, and how we make plans that put our feet on the ground in different spots. Now, because of this volatility and because of this liquidity and because of this molten state that we will be in as we have the first eclipse of this summer/winter, depending on what hemisphere you're in, we are being asked to really be impeccable with our thoughts. I've talked about the 4 agreements with a few signs for July, because if you haven't read this book, it's a great resource for just breaking down how to be in this world in a very simple way. But one of the main tenets of the 4 agreements is be impeccable with your word. The word, vibration, the vibration we create emotionally and via our physical bodies has everything to do with what we speak. This new moon, I have to tell you, is a moon you will want to be very impeccable with your word. It takes so much time to craft your thoughts. Notice when you just fall into some of those really old patterns that seem so normal. I'm going to start shuffling cards here. We've got to get rid of those patterns. Otherwise, it will stay the same. Sometimes people ask me, like, well, I've been waiting and nothing's changed. 7 of Wands, interesting. That came up for one of the Moon Magics recently, I think, and we were talking about how it's a challenge to step up to the plate, right? Action versus inaction. What is inspired action? When do you just get into receptive mode, and when do you take action? And in this card, it's about taking the action, taking the initiative, making sure you show up to the table. So once again, we have that. It does mean putting yourself out there. It does mean being seen. It does mean being felt. There's a lot of communicative energy here with the Grand Earth Trine and with Pluto asking us to transform our state. There's going to be a lot of ideas springing up in your mind around this new moon, a lot of seeds being planted, a lot of urgency almost in this feeling like you want it to happen right away. And that's great, but of course it won't. 2 of Cups, wow. There's that romantic aspect because Venus is part of this grand trine, and we have Saturn, which is honestly an energy of commitment, committing to people, to relationships, taking a relationship to the next level, committing to projects, committing to new horizons. Saturn's very practical about that. Let's lay out the foundation and make it happen. Uranus is the surprise element of taking the risk and putting yourself out there. And Venus is the element that ties it all together and says, you only do both of those things, commit and put yourself out there and take a risk if it's something of value and care to you, if it is something that speaks to your soul. So for some of you, there are things that have been building up inside of yourself for a number of months, really since the Aries season began. There's been a lot of people who have been feeling their engines revving up for the next phase. And it's been like, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. This is kind of a culminating point for that, where it will be crystal clear. Hierophant. Uranus and Taurus. What was I saying? As you can see here, I'm going to pull a couple more. As you can see here, it's a combination of the will to show up and do the work, Saturn, the romance, the beauty of showing up and speaking what's true for you and inspired action, Venus and Virgo, the Hierophant, Uranus and Taurus. This is another commitment card. This is also asking you about the spaces in your life that have felt like they were just done because it was part of the system that you were taught, that you learned as a young child, that you've learned throughout your working career life or learned within very specific relationships, and where that tradition has failed you. Queen of Wands. We are almost in Leo season. Where that tradition has failed you and where it helps you. Really be specific about that. Sometimes things we really believe help us. We really believe it's protecting us. We really believe it's giving us something that we need in order to be okay. We really believe that. The reality is that they are holding us prisoner, which is what I was saying about the Pluto aspect. Anything that feels it's holding you prisoner has to go. And it brings in this fiery freedom. This is knowing. This is knowing. This is knowing what inspired action looks like. That's what I think about the Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands knows all about action, about taking action, about showing up, about doing the work. She also understands when that is just a waste of time, when you are just doing busy work to do busy work. And that's what I'm seeing here. There's a refinement here between doing busy work to feel like you're doing something so that you can allay that gear mind that has been built into you, be a tradition. And when you're doing work and showing up to things because there is motivation, because there is inspiration, because there is connection. The scale is not between laziness and hard work. That drives me crazy when I see that as like the flow and not the flow, when people like to pit laziness versus hard work. Those are both just awful options. Neither one of them is actually a good descriptor of receptive mode or inspired action mode. They're actually a negative descriptor of both. And what we are doing here and what we are calibrating here with this new moon is that quiet, centering in self, mothering of self, caring of oneself, and being quiet and listening in and being receptive to the information coming to you is one state. The other state is inspired action state, which involves going for what you want, expressing those desires, making those phone calls, talking to the people you love, working those 15-hour days when you have a creative project that really matters to you. And yes, maybe you are tired at the end of it, but would you sit there and be, oh, it's just such hard work? Queen of Swords, truth. So we're getting queens here. Queens are closing out this. And what I find really interesting is, like I was saying, a lot of our collective is moving from the divine masculine as a focal point of how we get things done, which is here in the Hierophant, to the divine feminine. A lot of what Law of Attraction is talking about is divine feminine energy. And we need both in order for it to work. But we have been missing out a little bit culturally on a larger collective scale on this feminine energy of understanding when to rest and when to move, when to set healthy boundaries and when to open up. And that is what the calibration is doing right now. Just be aware, this moon is heavy hitting. Eclipses are always heavy hitting. We are heading into, we have so much retrograde action at the moment. So much retrograde action. We have these eclipses that are going to keep coming. The next eclipse we have is in Aquarius at the end of the month. And then we have another one in Leo in August. We're going to continue this eclipse cycle. Eclipse cycles are all about shedding old, outdated ways of doing things and opening up to new things. Eclipses do not allow for old ways. They will clean out anything that is not serving. The other thing I will say about eclipses is they tend to bring people around that maybe you haven't talked to for a while. They tend to bring situations to a culminating head. They tend to bring those phone calls in, those emails in, those run-ins in. There's a lot of kismet with eclipse energy. So be aware that, you may have some really interesting interactions that day. And you can always opt to just take the information in and listen and pay attention to how people are treating you or responding to you or saying what they're saying. And you have the option to take that in and take a moment for yourself before you respond. And I always say that's a great way. If you're just watching and listening very carefully and very focused, you will know where to put your foot next, and you will know what to do next with a lot more clarity. So for those of you with tense relationship or living situations, just take a breath. I mean, that's the lesson I learned, and part of the mega structure of me doing the moon magics is there's always a lead up. There's always a situational lead up to every single moon magic I do. Every single one has a context in which I sit down and do the reading. It never just is on my calendar and it just happens. This time I got ill and I was forced to rest for 2 days. And that has opened me up to understanding that receptivity mode is so important. Pulling back and not feeling you have to patrol is so important. That locks you in. If you serve as the prison guard of your life, where you feel you have to guard what you have or what you want with diligence, you are imprisoning yourself. You are not allowing yourself to be fully who you are and to fully integrate new information, new ways of doing things. Eclipses want to make space for the next thing, and that can be in very literal physical ways, with too many possessions or with feeling exhausted. It can also be with relationships. So keep that in mind. Listen in. Listen in. It's always a good practice. I am going to stop there. I am still going to be offering a handful of recorded readings for those who are interested in getting one before September, because for the rest of this summer, speaking of transition, I personally am going through a lot of transition. A lot of pieces of my life are moving around right now, so I'm trying to accommodate as many people as I can while still taking care of myself. So I'm going to offer those. If you'd like one, email me. I will leave all of my info, including my website, in the description box, as well as some links to some amazing artists and creators that I work with. If you're interested in any of those things, I will see you for the next Moon Magic and for the August readings. I hope this is just an amazing new moon for you, my loves. Take that earth energy and mold the next phase, because this is conscious creation time and you can really utilize it. I'm sending you so much love.